Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to round number 3 of coverage from the preliminary Pro Tour qualifier here from Darksphere in London. John Partridge, Tom Law in the commentary booth for round number 3 of action. Two players are already sat down. Yuri versus Pete Ward. Bant tokens, Green Red Landfall. Green Red Landfall seems to be really popular today. Everyone seems to be playing it.
Yeah, that's kind of odd actually, because well, in the last couple of weeks, it hasn't really been putting up many results. Mostly because Jeskai Black's been so like consistent and popular.
And we saw that last round.
Yeah.
The Jeskai Black deck just able to just overtake the game eventually.
Yeah, the overall card quality in Jeskai Black is just a bit too much for the Ataka Red players to overcome in general.
Okay. So we're gonna shortcut this slightly. We're gonna send it straight down to the feature match area. Shay Holland's on our button mashing today, so hopefully he doesn't mess up, and we shall see where it goes from there. So. Yuri on your right,
Yep.
Pete on your left. What do you normally see from this matchup? I'm assuming you've probably played more standard than I have of this caliber. I normally just play Death Misraptors and Den Protectors and call it a day after that.
I've actually played the Bant Tokens deck a little bit because it was one of the breakout decks from the Pro Tour, because Sam Black, being Sam Black, likes to innovate, and it was one of the top performing standard decks in the standard portion. And I don't know what innovations have come up since then, but it basically it wants to play creatures like Elfish Visionary, Hangerback Walkers on turn 2, and then Nissa, and then into like a retreat to Emiria or Gideon. The idea is, with cards like Visionary and Nissa, is that you can cast a creature and then you refill your hand so that you can still make your land drops. This is key to the strategy of the deck, because what Sam Black found in the testing was that he could make creatures and then play a retreat, and then he wouldn't have anything to trigger the retreat with, because obviously you're playing cards from your hand that's not refilling your hand. And then on the other side you've got Yuri, who's playing basically creatures and then pumping them and then double striking them and then killing you. It's quite straightforward, and we've seen it 3 times already today. And
differing results so far.
Yeah, it's 1-1. No, it's
0-2.
0-2.
It's not had a good day so far, but
Not
obviously
at all.
we were speaking about Elvish Visionary and Retreat to Emiria, the two probably I'd say signature cards of the deck that don't really appear in anything else currently. Elvish Visionary, 1 and a green 1/1, draws a card out into the battlefield. Retreat to Emiria, landfall, put a 1/1 white core ally, and it is an ally, so in limited you have the nice synergies.
Yep.
And creatures you control, and it's creatures you control, not just
Yep.
one, the whole
All
team.
of them, yeah.
+1/+1.
It's actually surprising how good that card is in constructed. So part of the reason why the Bant Tokens deck did so well at the Pro Tour was because that it's actually really good against Jeskai Black. As you saw in the last round, Jeskai Black just tries to grind you out slowly with 2-for-1s with the commands and Jace. And when you're trying to do that against a deck that plays a land and gets a creature, it becomes really difficult, because every card, and then even the creatures they draw replace themselves. So you're basically trying to 2-for-1 a deck that 2-for-1s you to start with. So you're just ending up balanced, and overall the card quality is still there, and as an enchantment retreat is really difficult for the Jeskai players to deal with.
And it's one of the things we've noticed, if you're outside of green and white, enchantments are, well, sometimes obviously the black-white decks have that around, but it's really hard to get enchantments off the table for not a lot of mana.
Yeah, so like in a Jeskai Black deck, your options are basically just Utter End, and after board you have things like Feladar's Club and Arrays. But game 1 is a struggle for the Jeskai decks.
Yeah. So we've seen a reasonably quick start here from Yuri. Land into Side Leopard, into Snapping Gnarlid. Just a hangerback, just the
as a 1/1.
underrated hangerback walker for Pete as a 1/1. We see the attack in, we've triggered the landfall. We'll see if Pete wants to block. We'll see if Pete wants to. I mean, his hand means that he might have to. He's got some reasonably expensive spells. He's got Secure the Waste for next turn, and eventually working up to Planet Outburst on 5.
And the Wingmate Rock as well.
Yeah, so his hand looks pretty well set up if maybe he wasn't under quite as much pressure. But we're going to see Side Leopard, well, we deal 3 here, and then unless Yuri has a Titan Strength or that. We're just waiting on the deck list to come through to us, but we're reasonably sure we know what most of these players will be playing, just various sideboard options can sometimes be different. And we're going to see a Morph. That's quite a curve.
Yeah.
Power.
So this is actually what you want from the green-red deck typically. You just want to play creatures for the first 3 turns, and then on turn 4, your opponent either taps out to deal with you guys, or you or deal with a guy usually, because sweepers just don't get played very much anymore unless you're playing the Esper deck. And then you are left with one or two other creatures, and then you can go for the combo. In this case, Pete actually doesn't have any way to deal with the combo game one. So if Yuri decides to go for it, Pete is just dead.
Because they're also not on Dramoka's command.
No.
As much as they're not a Bant Megamorph deck or a green-white Megamorph deck. They're not running either the playset or 3 Dramoka's command. So his interaction is Silk Wrap, Stasis Snare, and Quarantine Field if they're going up to that level of thing. It's just these individual pieces of interaction. But we see it past the turn there. Looks like there is actually a Stasis Field in hand already. Just hit as he flicks that through.
I see a Silk Wrap and a Quarantine Field. I think his plan here is actually to secure the wastes.
Oh, okay. Secure the wastes for earlier. White X.
Yep.
Instant.
Yep.
Put X1/1s into play.
Correct. And it's quite good normally, except when the red-green player has Battle Rage Ferocious. Because that Ferocious gives Trample, and your 1/1s do not do very much there.
Sorry. So Yuri, another fetch land. Obviously, one of the things all Pete wants to do right now is get to turn 5.
Yeah.
Where he has his Planner Outburst
Yes.
ready to go.
He's also got Quarantine Field, so if he can get rid of one of these guys, then his Quarantine Field could be for 2. But then that requires him to get to 6 mana, which is a tall order when he's on 13 and his opponent's got 3 creatures on the board.
And all of them have been pumped yet again by another fetch land.
Yeah. And the Den Protector's, if he chooses to flip the Den Protector, it's unblockable here as well.
Yeah, Den Protector has some really important rules texts in this format where you're trying to play with a lot of tokens. We see the Aberrate of Keral Keep.
It's interesting that he chose to play the fetch land before playing the Keral Keep there. Because he could have flipped a fetch land off the Keral Keep and he would potentially lose a card.
And fetch land's more important in this landfall deck than say in your Ataka red deck. We can see Team of Battle Rage has been the reveal. Currently that Snapping Annihilate is a 4/4. So it does activate the Team of Battle Rage. So that is 8 points of, theoretically 8 points of damage.
Yep.
Or he can shoot it on something else and still get the Ferocious because of that. Let's see where Pete will choose to go with this.
So he needs to have a Stasis Snare.
No,
he does have a Stasis Snare there.
He's got 2 in fact at the moment.
So that's pretty much ideal for him actually. But
so get rid of the
whatever he targets with the Battle Rage, and then he could chump. He probably has to chump here because he's on 13, taking 4. So what is likely to happen is he'll probably block the Nalid, and then try and bait Yuri into pumping the Nalid because that gets more damage through, and then in doing so he actually kind of gets rid of the most threatening threat. At the same time, he could also just do it to the Den Protector because then it gets rid of a card as well. So there's a lot of lines here that's quite difficult to work out as Pete is trying to mull over how he's going to deal with the Battle Rage.
Was that no blocks? Or is he still trying to understand what the card does? He's reading it. It is a card that sometimes people hear about it. It's this mythical combo card that no one actually realises until it gets done to you, and you're like, that actually does it exactly what that card does. Because you used to see it in the heroic decks, one type of heroic deck from the last standard, but it's started to really make its way into this format currently. So we're going to see the Thopter, as you said, Tom, blocking on the Nalid. Try and save the most amount of damage. Force Yuri into using this Team of Battle Rage. No, we're just going to take the damage.
Yuri saw that he's probably playing around the Stasis Snare. So he's basically gone, well, you're trying to trick me into doing this. I'm going to go, no, I'm okay. I'm going to keep up the Den Protector, and then next turn I can flip the Den Protector and have a 3/2 unblockable. And
that 3/2 unblockable is very important at the moment, and he does still have the Team of Battle Rage that he can get back.
Yes.
So it's not, no, it was in exile, but he's got more fetch lines in his graveyard, which he can still leverage that advantage.
I think that is the line he is going to go for. He's going to try and return another fetch land so that the next turn his team is still big.
Yes, obviously so. Healing his hand, feeling he might have to use one of these Stasis Snares, get the card off the table. Going after the Snapping Gnarlid, get that off the table. Yuri's like,
sure.
Can't really deal with that pre-combat. Untap, draw. We see Nissa Vastwood Seer.
I'm actually surprised he didn't try to Stasis Snare in combat there. I'm not sure what Pete was afraid of.
Well, if he acts first, then the Team of Battle Rage can be used.
That is true, yes.
And it does 2 more damage, so then he's down to 5. Maybe it might have been a good play from Yuri to actually force him
Well, he knows he has. Well, he's on 7, so he would have been on 5. So yeah, it is quite risky to do so. But he would have forced Yuri to use the mana. Then he could get rid of the Den Protector.
Yeah, and he could have.
But then he would be dead.
Yeah, he could. One of the things he could do is he could actually target the Den Protector with the Stasis Snare.
Yeah.
Because then either Yuri has to save the Den Protector and get the value out of it, or target the Snapping Gnarlid with the Battle Rage. And maybe Pete was a little bit hesitant to use his life total, so
Battle Rage would have been putting him down to 4 though, because that's 3 additional points of damage.
So he would have been down to 4,
which is with such board presence, it's very hard to fight through. I mean, he's pretty much up against it here already.
If Yuri doesn't flip the Den, sorry, right now the Secure the Waste looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
We're going to see a Monastery Swift Spear.
Although he can still respond to this Secure the Wastes.
Yep.
So if Pete goes for a Secure the Waste for 3 here, then Yuri can just respond to that, flip the Den Protector, which is then becomes unblockable.
I think Pete might be slightly priced into doing the Secure the Waste right now because there's a lot of damage on the other side of the table, and he is only at 7.
He probably has to do it and accept the fact that he will lose to another Battle Rage, or become immense on the Den Protector.
Of course, at the moment, he would also lose to Titan Strength.
Titan Strength
because he has to crack a fetch land. Puts himself down to 6. The Den Protector then does 6 points of unblockable damage.
Yes, that is correct.
And depends obviously how many cards Yuri has in hand, but Yuri's played a lot of cards, so he might be down to only 1 or 2 left.
It looks like he's only got 1 or 2 left here. It's actually interesting with that fetch land, because Pete probably does want to crack this, but is also aware of the fact that he is going to be dead to even a Tarkus command here would put him on lethal. So,
but I mean, at what point at one point in this game, do you just sort of have to go shrug your shoulders and go, if he has it, he has it. I have to try and play. I have to try and give myself the best out of getting to the next turn.
I think in general, when you're playing against the red decks, when you're in this sort of situation whereby you're so far behind, you have to just take the riskier lines. And he does go for the fetch because he does need to get the secure for as much as possible.
He needs to be able to block 3 creatures.
Yes.
He'll probably let the probably the Swift Spear through.
If Yuri lets him block, then he probably blocks the Den Protector here.
Yeah. And you're probably going to let Swift Spear through. It's the least amount of damage.
Yes.
So obviously it can't be pumped by landfall.
There's also the potential to just block the Abbot, because it will kill it if Yuri doesn't have a spell. And if Yuri has a spell, you are just dead, because every spell in Yuri's deck does 3 damage at this point.
So if he's allowed to block the Den Protector, that will be like a small victory. Because he only takes 5 from a Titan Strength off of the Swift Spear.
Yes.
So we'll have to see what happens. So he's going to cast the Secure the Waste. Yuri's, yep, that's fine. So they're in.
Is Yuri going to let him move to blocks?
Move to blocks. Yeah.
Seems like
because if he moves to blocks, he's able to. I don't know.
Okay, he's going to respond by morphing the Den Protector.
Obviously, that's 3 points of damage.
Yes, and
we see
get back
many lands.
His graveyard is just lands, but that's okay because there's pump spells.
Yep. And we're now going to see blocks on everything, and this Planar Outburst looks like Pete's best out right now.
Yeah, but he is still on 3, which means that Yuri just needs to draw an Atarka's command, and that will close the game out.
Yeah. But Pete at this point giving himself the most amount of time to dig himself out of this situation. Obviously, you can't block the Den Protector.
No.
It's bigger than your warrior, Pete, so you're going to have to block something else.
He might choose not to block the Swift Spear here, but with the Outburst as his out, I think he just wants to save as much damage as possible. Because if he doesn't draw the land here for the Outburst, he is just gone.
And Yuri didn't have anything.
No. So the block on the Abbot was a good block there for him.
Now we just have to see if he has the land, and it doesn't seem like he actually has that 5th land, unfortunately, for Pete.
He's had an awkward draw because he drew the Nissa after turn 3, whereas ideally what he wanted to do was go hang her back into Nissa. The Nissa acts as a roadblock, gets him another land. But in this situation here, the Nissa is just not enough because the Den Protector is unblockable here, and he does have a Silk Wrap, I think. So he can block one of the creatures and have a Silk Wrap for the Den Protector.
He needs to cross many fingers and many toes on this turn. As his Silk Wrap take care of the Den Protector, he needs to hope that Yuri has literally nothing in hand to get through.
He wants Yuri to draw another land here, probably. Awkwardly for the land.
Abbot of Kerrol Keep off the top.
Yes. That gives him another draw step.
So spin that wheel again, so we see the Abbot.
Trigger.
Reveal a Den Protector. Ooh, unfortunately.
It
Yuri's
doesn't
going to
quite
play
do
it, and
enough
he's going to
here.
get fairly...
Yeah, blown out by
maybe
the...
no. We might have been wrong. Pete doesn't actually seem to have the planar outburst. It was a stasis snare. Was the second was the other card that we thought
Okay.
it was? But
So Yuri's still in a good position here, though. Then, because without the planar outburst, it's very difficult to see how Pete's going to get rid of 3 creatures here. He needs to get rid of.
you see another land there. So that side lep is now lethal. So this is going to have to do a bit of chump blocking.
So he's going to chump block the Scythe Leopards.
Make
Taking
Yuri.
1.
Well, he's got to make Yuri crack the fetch land, but
Yeah.
the Den Protector is still exiled. That one will be able to be played still.
Yeah.
Can't get rid of that one yet.
Be interesting to see whether Yuri plays it for a morph or as a 2-1, depending on what his last card is. I don't know what his last card is, but he's going to play it as a morph. Yeah.
There isn't really anything there, but there is an Abbot, which is, as we say, a redraw
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes. So, Pete, what is your deck going to do for you today?
Another Gideon.
That's not going to get you there, I don't think.
No. So,
Deck lists.
okay. So we're seeing basically green-red landfall doing what green-red landfall does, which is winning game 1s because most decks don't have the main deck slots to play the hate cards that they would have for it in the sideboard. And we're going to go to game 2 here, and we're going to have a look at the sideboards as we get the deck lists. So, for
We found them now, so we can now actually
Work
discuss
out
what's
what
in
they
their
are.
deck.
yeah,
I mean, Yuri's is a fairly standard deck. He is Den Protect, Snapping Gnarled, Abbot of Carol Keep. There's 1 Zergo, there's only 1, then the 4 ofs, Attack Command, Become Immense, Titan Strength, and Team of Battle Raid. He does also have 1 Evolving Wilds.
1 evolving wild.
Losing a forest for an Evolving Wilds, it's technically
quite
another
some
fetch
spice.
land.
I mean, it is a. So we were talking about Retreat to Emeria pumping your whole team for +1/+1. So with that card, any fetch land becomes +2/+2. With Yuri's deck, a good portion of it has landfall. So basically, he is playing intrinsically built-in Retreat to Emerias on his creatures, and Evolving Wilds may seem odd in an aggro deck because you don't want your lands to come and play tapped. But if you treat it as like another spell almost, it seems fine.
The upside of having it in the deck is greater than the downside.
Yes, and because the deck plays like a combo deck, you don't necessarily need to have the turn 1 plays. You'd like to have them, but you don't need to have them.
Yeah.
And
So-
obviously, it doesn't have to be your first land drop either.
So in terms of the sideboard, then obviously Yuri playing a fairly standard sideboard in 3 Arc Lightning, 3 Outpost Siege, 2 Wild Slash, 2 Roasts, 3 Raining Volleys, a Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker, and you save a Dragon Claw. Now Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker stands out as a good one. It's evasive flyer. The Bant deck can't, without the Wingmate Rocks, struggles to block flyers. Maybe the Wild Slashes to try and get through the early spell. Like we know he has Elvish Visionary, Nissavas would Seer,
Yep.
Hangaback Walker. And if you can kill a Hangaback Walker straight away, meaning your guys that can't chump block twice.
Yes.
Outpost Siege might be a bit too slow.
I think so. I think Outpost Siege is pretty much just for the decks where you have they force you to play the long game. So things like Esper Control or Abzan. Those are the matchups where you want the Outpost Siege. In this scenario, Bat Tokens actually has a very quick clock. If you don't do anything, they can bury you under in about 2 turns. So you need to be careful with playing cards like Outpost Siege. You just give them too much time to do their thing.
So you like staying on the slightly smaller plan, maybe taking out some pieces of the combo because your opponent has so many Silk Wrap effects, Stasis Snares, Quarantine Fields.
Yes, definitely. Especially if it's playing against a white deck, you have to expect that they're going to board in Surge of Righteousness, which lowers the impact of your combo. Although you can still just put it on a green creature and they can't do very much about that.
Yeah, it's always the nice payoff of playing red-green is you can use the green landfall creatures to assist you in going through your opponent's board. And Surge of Righteousness, is it in there?
Yes. Pete's deck list is actually a very stock list from the Pro Tour itself. And talking of Surge of Righteousness, it plays 4 copies of it
Wow, that is a lot of hate for red. He does not want to lose to red decks. 4 Silk Wraps, 4 Surge of Righteousness.
Well, we saw in that game, the red deck is very quick, and despite having a lot of early plays, his early plays don't actually act as much more than chump blockers. Your 1/1 Elvish Visionary isn't going to trade with the Scythe Leopard, and it's not going to trade with the Monastery Swiftspear, so it is just a roadblock. So you need something to get rid of these creatures, because if you don't get rid of the creatures, as you saw in that game there, Yuri builds up a board and it can go wide as well as tall, which is then you put in a situation where you can't deal with both and you lose to one of them. So
one of the very interesting things as well, looking at this deck, is because he's on Bant tokens, he doesn't have any Deathmish Raptors or the Den Protector engine, and this, as you're saying, the stuff he blocks with is not very efficient. Whereas you can put a Deathmish Raptor into play, it blocks everything Yuri's doing, and they have to have the parts of the combo to really go over the top of it because of Death Touch. And it feels that because Pete Ward's playing so much smaller 1/1s, 2/2s very early on, he might be losing out slightly to the landfall deck. That means he has to obviously make up with the 4 Surge of Righteousness. Maybe he brings in the Negate. Maybe he brings in the Den Protectors. There isn't really much else that he's really wanting to bring in at the moment.
His full sideboard is 2 Evolutionary Leaps, which it's not the right matchup for it. It's just too slow. It's not going to achieve anything. You got 3 Den Protectors, which you can board in, but you're not really expecting to play it as a morph. You are going to play it as a 2/1 to try and trade, but it's still not great. 4 Surges, which is obviously great. 2 Valorous Stance, potentially, if you are fearing the combo, it can stop them comboing you. So as I said in game 1, Pete has very limited ways to deal with the combo. So it's just the 2 Stasis Snares that he runs. So that ups it to 4 copies of things that can stop the combo. And then the rest of the sideboard is 1 Oblivion Sower, which costs 6.
You should be dead by then.
You're either dead or so far in control that you don't want to cast this spell. And then 1 Negate, potentially again to ward yourself against the combo. And 2 Erases. I think that's just as a
bit of a mirror
matches.
attack.
And potentially against Esper tokens.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting things with Arrays is it's started to see a bit more play again.
Yeah.
Because the Silk Wrap is almost the #1 removal spell currently going around. And we see Yuri taking a quick mulligan down to 6. Obviously not happy with his opener. And I think one of the things that's interesting with Bisek, he's running the full 4 Retreat to Emeria. Feels like some of them might be coming out. Is a bit slow.
Yeah, certainly in this matchup, he doesn't need the full 4. He wants to basically trim the curve as much as possible. He would probably have to still keep some in there because it is the centerpiece to the deck, if you will. But the fact that it doesn't actually generate anything until turn 5 is a problem. And we see Yuri with the turn 1 Scythe Leopard there. Just what you want to see.
Hangerback Walker for 1.
Yeah.
This deck being much better on the play than on the draw.
Definitely. Like with the green-red landfall deck, when you're the opponent of the red-green landfall deck, you really want to be on the play because it means that you can set up before they can get going.
And you also get to then activate your Hangerback Walker.
Yeah.
Double Scythe Leopard. No fetch land, interestingly enough.
He did have he used the fetch land turn 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. He might just be holding on to his fetch lands because he knows that he's going to have to double leopard, so he can get more value out of it.
And double leopard is pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, Wild Knuckletal was playable in Modern, right?
Yeah, it was all banned in Modern at one point, I hear, as well.
Yeah.
So good cards are good.
Yeah, I mean, if you can play Wild Knuckletal in Standard, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so we see, unfortunately for Pete, he seems to be having a bit of a land-heavy draw. And then we see the Evolving Wilds.
Yeah.
It has made its appearance.
So
that's one trigger. He seems to be on 4 lands secure the waste for Pete.
So it doesn't seem terrible for Pete because he can buy a lot of time with the cards he has in hand. The problem is he's not really buying time into much because all of his removal is 1/1 except for the single copy of Planar Outburst. So if Yuri keeps developing his board and gets too far ahead in the board, then his only out becomes a Planar Outburst. So Pete elects to just take the 6 here, and I guess he's trying to get his hanger back to a point where it becomes a wall, or at the very least gets enough tokens that it's worth his while to trade it off.
Yeah, and it's able to trade with one of the creatures that Yuri's playing.
Yes.
Seems like Yuri passes the turn back. We're going to see the Hangerback Walker activate in the end step, up to 2 counters, untap. And on to Pete's turn. See if he can find a spell off the top. Well, that was a Den Protector. So
well, we did
you're going to find one that's pretty good.
Yeah. The problem is he doesn't have anything in his bin. So he's going to have to play. He's going to have to play it as just a Grey Ogre or just as a 2/1 to chump, I guess, because you got to expect that the Leopard are going to be at least 2/2s, potentially 3/3s.
The other way he can go about it is play the Den Protector now. Cross your fingers, Yuri doesn't misspell, but it allows you to then use the Hangback Walker to block, pump to 3, sacrifice that. Next turn, unflip, replay Hangback Walker.
I actually quite like that line. That seems like a optimal play for him. It means that he gets to use a Hangback Walker for more tokens, and he should be able to trade for a Scythe Leopard. And he uses his mana as well. So the other line that I was considering was that perhaps he can just secure the wastes here, and then next turn play the Den Protector, because he wants to get value out of this Den Protector, and the only spell he has other than the Walker on the table is secure the wastes.
No, we're going to see the Den Protector.
Yeah.
So he decides he wants to get something going. Yuri, but interestingly, doesn't have a burn spell, fortunately. That would be what Pete was probably crossing his fingers going, please don't have a removal spell.
Yes. The green-red landfall deck doesn't actually play many burn spells, despite being a red deck. I think it's none in the main deck. And
all the slashes are in the board.
Yeah.
It's changed quite a bit from, I believe, the deck from the Protocol, because the deck of the Protocol had some fiery impulses.
Yeah.
So we see Yuri there firing off his his Titan Strength in the upkeep, so it allows him to scry before his draw step.
Possibly looking for a fetch land and or a Battle Rage. Yeah. Although he can't cast Battle Rage here. His mana's very awkward here. He elected to search for another forest with his Evolving Wilds, which is interesting because the deck shouldn't really need more than one green mana a turn. So perhaps he has double Become Immense, but then he still can't cast them.
Just as he appears, we find the mountain there. So it's going to be interesting, Pete. Does he want to trade off the Hangerback, get some extra blockers, and then rebar the Hangerback next turn? Depends obviously on what he draws. So
I think
we're going to block.
Yeah, it's a good trade for him because it also gives him 3 blockers.
So we're going to see the Team of Battle Rage gives double strike. So
double strike and trample because of the Titan Strength.
Yep. Can't forget the fact that the Titan Strength is +3/+1.
So it's
5 power.
5 power double striking right now. And how many cards does Yuri have in the bin? Because he has the 1 green open.
I think he only has 4 in the graveyard. He has the 2 lands, the Titan Strength, and the Team of Battle Rage. So this is going to be putting Pete down to 3 life. That's
not a healthy life total at all.
No.
Even like Pete hasn't actually done anything horrendously wrong in the matchup in terms of drawing the right cards in the right order. He's made a 2-drop, he's made a 3-drop, but he's still on a single-digit life total on the play as well.
Yeah, this landfall deck doesn't take long to kill. This is why things like Surge of Righteousness, Silk Wrap is so important, because Yuri's only played 2 creatures.
Yes, and it's actually one of the weaknesses of the green-red landfall decks is that if you do draw multiple removal spells, they do kind of start becoming a little bit anemic because they're playing so many spells which are pump spells. They're not burn spells like the old mono red decks where like you deal with the creatures and now you're going to deal with Stoke the Flames or Lightning Strike. You're dealing with Battle Rage and Become Immense, which are great with creatures, but they're not doing anything unless they have something to go on.
So Yuri's draw for the turn. 5 mana open from Pete. Obviously looks like he might be being able to secure the way to the next step. So we're going to see Monastery Swift Spear, and a passing of the turn.
I think this is interesting because passing the turn here lets Pete have a turn where he doesn't have to worry about dying. So he can cast a Secure the Waste here and make more blockers, or he can just flip the Den Protector, return the Hangerback, and now he's got 6 points of damage on the table, which is all unblockable.
Yeah, and he can still secure for 2 as well.
Yes. Well, he can secure for...
Well, if he decides to flip the Den Protector, can still secure for 2. Allows him to do something, and we can see his hand's still full of lands. He seems to have drawn lands. He's drawn... so far in this game, he has drawn 3 spells.
He's worried about the Wild Slash here, because he's got a fetch land, and he's on 3 life. And his hand is still full of other fetches. But I can't see him not trying to get the 5th land here.
And especially... Sorry, carry on.
His opponent doesn't have red mana open, so he's not immediately dead, but he doesn't have any incidental life gain in the deck either. So
No, and like you say, 2 and 3 are very different numbers.
yes,
But they're against Yuri, it might be completely the same number.
yeah,
Atark's command will still get you either way. But Wild Slash, Yuri didn't have the Wild Slash before, and that morph is quite a target for
yes.
a Wild Slash if he'd been able to find it. So we see.
I think that's why he has elected to go for it, because he probably realised that he would have had Den Protected Wild Slashed earlier if there was one in Yuri's hand, and certainly Yuri probably wouldn't have tapped his mana in the way he has.
So we see the secure for 4.
Yep.
Draw for the turn. We've seen Nissa Vaswood Seer.
That's quite a good draw here, because so he wanted a spell. He's on 5 lands now. He doesn't want to play his fetch lands because he doesn't want to keep losing more life. Although 2 and 1 is probably the same thing. It just means that he can swarm you. But having Nissa here, he can flip it the turn after, which then gets him to keep getting out of this flood that he's in.
So we see Nissa Vaswood Seer into play. Trigger, search a library for a basic forest, and the important thing is it is basic. We shall pull it up on screen for those of you at home who aren't so sure what it is, what Nissa Vaswood Seer does. And then we also have... you're gonna have to I can't remember what the flip side is. This is going to challenge...
Sage's Animus.
Oh, Sage Animus, there we go. We'll get there in the end. There we go. So we have found them. So Nissa Vaswood Seer, 2 and a green, 2/2 elf, legendary elf scout. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for basic forests. You can't fetch any of the dual lands, not Knight of the White Orchid. You're not able to fetch any of the dual lands.
No.
Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you can store 7 or more lands, then you may turn Nissa.
So she flips into the Planeswalker side.
Which is the Sage Animist.
Yeah. And so the Sage Animist is basically, usually what you do is you make a 4/4, but in this deck, the plus is so good because, as I said earlier, all your lands are potentially spells as well. Oh, and Yuri's just drawn and cast as Sarkhan.
Oh no!
So
we're going to see this into hand.
That's the game.
Pete tapped out, attacked with all his Thopter tokens. Unfortunately, wasn't able to play around the top of Yuri's deck. And Yuri able to clear up 2 games to 0 against Bant tokens. When we say Bant, we mean green, blue and white. The Shard from Alara. And, well, it was always going to happen. Green-red landfall was always going to eventually win on camera.
Yes.
And it's finally picked up its first win on the camera. So, we're going to bring it back to the booth. Tom Law, John Partridge. Commiserations to Pete. Very, not the most pleasant loss to take.
No.
Especially to 2 side leopards.
Yeah, I think the matchup is very difficult for Bant tokens because it's not playing the removal suite that we see in a lot of the other decks. So when you're playing green white Megamorph, for example, which is the same colors essentially, because the blue in Bant tokens is just for dispels and disdainful strokes. But you're not playing Death Mist Raptors, as you mentioned earlier, which is a very good blocker. And it's not playing Dromoka's Command, which can get rid of creatures and buy you more time. And it's like your creatures just aren't very big, so it's always going to be an uphill battle. And Yuri did draw fairly well there, I think, compared to our previous
he lands and spells in
the right
order.
Yeah.
The other games they were a little bit flooded,
yeah. And in Yuri's case, even when he was flooded, he had 2 landfall guys on the table, and the way he flooded was with fetches, which means that they're all +2/+2.
Yeah, and that's the powerful thing. Instead of having, say, Den Protector and Monstrous Swift Spirit, it was Side Leopard, Snapping Gnarlid.
Yeah.
All of those are affected by flooding,
yes,
which is a good thing for the deck.
Exactly.
You don't ever want to flood, but if you are, you want to have it with some landfall creatures in play. That concludes round number 3 of coverage here from the preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. The regional was yesterday. We are now on back to the preliminaries today.
Yep.
Around 80 players walked in. One will eventually leave as title of champion of the preliminary Pro Tour qualifier for Darkster in London on this day in November. We're going to take a quick break, go and get some lunch. It has just arrived, and I believe it is that time of the day.
Smells good.
I imagine Tom and myself will be back in for the next round, and then we'll swap out. Shay will come back in, probably do it with you again, Tom. I think you might be in for a few rounds, because as you say, you might not be here for the top 8, and me and Shay will have to see it down the stretch.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching. That concludes round 3 of coverage. Hopefully you will join us for round 4 very shortly. We shall see you soon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Round number 4 of action here from the standard PPTQ from Dartford in London. John Partridge, and yet again I have Tom Law sat beside me to bring you wonderful information that I might not be able to provide. This man has been playing it a little bit more, and he's had a bit more success than I have of late. Obviously qualifying for the World Magic Cup, which I'm sure you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
And obviously already qualifying for this regional Pro Tour qualifier as well from this season.
They were both the old standard, though, to be fair.
Well, a win's a win. And you'll get used to it, and obviously you're going Brussels next weekend. I'm going to GP Brussels next weekend, and full of standard action. So we're going to send it straight on down to the feature match area. We have, on one side of the table, I will quickly just put all the information in. We have, on one side of the table, we have David Smith, who is on Abzan Red Dragons.
Yep.
And on Victor Vidal, we have on Abzan Aggro.
Yep.
Nice and simple. 2 Abzan decks, trying to do slightly different things, but we'll send it on straight down.
Yep. Interestingly, it's our first Abzan decks of the day, I believe.
Yeah.
This is quite surprising considering how well it's been doing on the pro scene. I think they've obviously won the Pro Tour. It won the GP. Both GP, I think after the Pro Tour were won by Abzan. A lot of people are underestimating this deck, I think, because I think part of it is because Magic players get bored of certain archetypes, and Abzan seems to have been around for forever, and like Rhinos, you just playing it seemingly forever as well. Not much really has changed in the deck lists from the new sets, to be honest. You still so in the Abzan aggro deck, you're still working towards playing your 3-drop Anafenza into your 4-drop Siege Rhino, backed up by the Abzan Charms and Dromoka's commands. Obviously very powerful cards, with the addition of the Gideon from the new set, which gives it a lot more staying power. So you can't just remove Gideon because he'll leave an ally, and you can't just kill the ally because he'll keep a Gideon. And then on the other side of the table we have David Smith, who's playing a bit of a spicy list here. He's running the same Abzan mid-range suite that you'd normally expect with Den Protectors and Siege Rhinos, but at the top end he's rounding it off with the Dragon Lord Ataka and Dragon Lord Dromoka.
So we've just having some small technical problems at the moment. You can see the camera's glitching, so we'll just bring it back to booth. Alexi's going to go and pull apart the cables, try and put them back together. Obviously, we're trying out some new things today. We're trying out a secondary stream, currently sat next to it, so we've got 2 feature match areas. So we can try and have one match live, then we go back to the other one after that. So we're just hopefully we'll be having the cameras working properly in a moment. We're just going to have a quick look. It's just going to sort it out, and we're now running properly. We'll send it back down to the feature match area. Camera's running properly now. We'll be able to go forward with the match from there. So we can see a morph from Victor and David in with a Nissa, fetching up a forest off of Cinderglade, Canopy Vista, and a Plains. And one of the interesting things, both decks, the morph will be Den Protector.
Yes.
There's no Death Mist Raptors in this match.
No.
There's no Hidden Dragon Slayers. There's no Strats Dancer. It is.
Although it's no longer a fair assumption anymore. So if you see an Abzan opponent, there is still a chance that he could be playing Death Mist Raptors, because that is sort of making a resurgence because people are forgetting about it. So it's become more effective, as it were. People aren't playing main deck complete disregards anymore,
and Silk Wrap not quite as good as an answer to Death Mist Raptor as before, as the decks playing Death Mist Raptor generally have Dromoka's command.
Exactly.
Normally, obviously, for a while, the main deck that was running the Death Mist Raptor was the green-white X Megamorph deck, which has, at the beginning of the format, was all over it. Michael Mage is obviously doing very well. The next weekend there was a green-white mirror match, and then it disappeared off the map when the pros started playing Abzan again. It's still there. Always expect to go to a tournament and have people playing green-white Megamorph. It's a very consistent deck, even if it's not flashy powerful.
Yeah, in Standard there's a few interactions that you can't really dodge. So there's the Jason Dig-Through Time, there's the Den Protector Death Mist Raptor, there's the Battle Rage Become Immense, it's the Ulamog Ugin.
And with his Sanctum as well.
Yeah, I really want to see that deck at some point today. That deck has a lot of potential to it. Nothing beats casting Ugin into Ulamog into Ulamog into Ulamog.
No, and it's terrifying to see it happen. I'm not gonna lie. I've been on the receiving end of it a few times, and you have to draw very, very well to try and get out from underneath that sort of pressure. So we see painful truths for three life. So black, white, green, draw 3, lose 3. New card draw starting to make its way into most of the black decks. Even the aggro decks are starting to play one copy, just because you're able to actually proceed your game by drawing those extra cards you
An
need.
interesting card, actually. So this has been played over Read the Bones, which when the set was first bought, I initially thought that Read the Bones would probably be better than this card because you see 4 rather than seeing 3. But obviously, with the mana bases being so free, getting to 3, drawing 3 is just a little bit better.
And just drawing 3 raw cards sometimes, especially for the Abzan deck where it's it's playing really powerful spells. Drawing 3
doesn't really matter
offsets
what you
seeing
get.
some extra cards. You just draw 3 cards, hit lands and whatnot. And with the Abzan decks, and with Standard being as mana hungry as it is, drawing cards is really important, and just having the lands to be able to cast your spells. So even if you say Painful Truths into 3 lands, if you've got spells in hand, you're not too concerned.
Like, you're getting rid of those cards, aren't you? Really? So it's fine. And the other aspects of it, of Painful Truth is, it's not an instant, so you can't counter it. So even in the blue decks, they would play Painful Truths because they wanted to get under Dispel. It still gets negated, obviously. So Victor has a full grip there of a lot of powerful cards.
Yeah, and we see Murderous Cut taking out the Den Protector.
Yeah.
David deciding to tap all 5 mana, crossing his fingers that his opponent doesn't have a Wingmate Rock as the follow-up. Obviously, Abzan can't counter Wingmate Rocks, you might as well make the most of your mana, and then untap and deal with those problems. So we see Anafender is the follow-up.
Although he could have potentially just cut the Den Protector before combat, and then cuts off the avenue that he can raid the Wingmate Rock afterwards.
Allow your opponents to go to combat and they say, no, I'm going to get it now.
Exactly.
We can see both players have got a forest and a plain, so all of their battle lands will now be coming into play untapped. I'm going to say at this point, when it gets to it, you feel like you're playing legacy lands.
Yeah.
When you're playing those lands into play.
I mean, we've only got 5 of them at the moment. When we get all 10, which speculation is that we're going to get all 10 in Oath of the Gatewatch.
Oath of the Gatewatch.
Yeah. So when we get all 10,
we'll work it out in a minute.
Yeah.
I will quickly go diving to our trusty fabled internet, and we shall work out exactly what the set is called.
So
Oath of
when we get all 10,
Gatewatch. You are correct.
The mana bases are going to be insane. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 5 color decks as basically the norm.
Yeah, that could be terrifying to say the least.
I mean, if you can go Jason to Mantis Rider into Siege Rhino, why not?
Of course, you've still got to have a lot of basics in that deck.
True.
But we started to see a bit of a transformation from the decks from temples, tri-lands and fetch lands and a few basics into basics, fetch lands, battle lands.
Yes.
Obviously we're seeing the Abzan decks are still having to run some number of Sandstep Citadels, obviously being that tri-land that produces their 3 colours, but they're more going away to, oh no, I just want to play basics, battle lands, fetch lands, because it's so powerful.
Yeah,
and then come into play untapped lands.
I mean, the advantage of playing the battle lands is you only really need 1 or 2. If you have 1 or 2, you can fetch them, and that's all you need. You don't have to play full 4, which lets you splash quite happily, really. We see a Colligan's Command here returning a Nissa, and doing 2 to Gideon. So Gideon's really kind of warped the format a little bit, because he's very resilient. A lot of the new Planeswalkers in this standard format is pretty much defined by how resilient they are. So you don't really see Kiora getting played that much because she doesn't defend herself. And Obnixilis sees some play, but usually in a control shell. And we see Jamoka's Command there. A spell we haven't seen today, but we're being reminded of why that card is so good.
Yeah, the +1/+1 fight
Yep.
makes your guy bigger, and especially when your opponent has nothing on board and there's 11 life.
Yeah.
He's now going to be able to untap and attack for a lot of damage.
Yeah.
We see Canopy Vista into play. Interesting to play the Canopy Vista there rather than playing the forest that your opponent knows about. Bit of free information there for Victor. But he's quite far ahead right now. We're going to see Gideon uptick. We're going in for 8.
Is it 8 or 11?
9,
He's
10.
on 11. So
And he has another Abzan chance. It's be 9, 10, and well, this should be.
Well, I think Victor just had to select a spell in hand to kill him there. I think he had 2 Siege Rhinos as well. So
we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So there's the lethal damage.
Yep.
David calmed a lot about that. Pick up onto him. It was a very quick start there from Abzan Aggro, able to curve through his creatures. The Dome
Yeah.
Protector doing a nice amount of work, getting him some extra value, getting back the Dromoka command obviously in the game. So on to the sideboard. If we look at the Abzan red deck side of it, obviously in the main deck, the main difference that we're seeing here is a Dragon Lord Ataka, a Dragon Lord Dromoka, and one copy of Dragon Master Outcast. Now Dragon Master Outcast in this matchup actually pretty good. It's very hard to kill later,
True.
but not good early on.
No.
A 1-mana 1/1 against Abzan, not good early on. But later on in the game, when you're starting to level the battlefield, play that, making 5/5
It's an
dragons.
excellent top deck, I must say. But so Dragon Master Outcast in the previous standard it was in was not really played very much. In this particular standard, it's been seeing play a lot more because of the recursion available to you, thanks to the Kolaghan's command and Ojutai's command. So in David's deck, he's utilising the Kolaghan's command, which he has 3 of, to return the Dragon Master should it ever die. So, as you said, it's very powerful late on, very difficult to get rid of. So it's a nice one-off to have.
So if we go to the sideboard then, I mean, in fact, David running a lot of basics, 3 forests, 2 swamps, 1 mountain, 1 plains, alongside the usual Siege Rhino, Den Protector, Hangback Walker, Nissa Vastwood Sick, Nissa obviously instead of, and a couple of spells instead of Anafenza.
Yeah.
He's going slightly bigger. Sideboard, we've got 2 Transgress the Mind, 2 Duress, an Ugin the Spirit Dragon, 2 Surge of Righteousness, 3 Ashen Clerics, 1 Dragon Lord Dromoka, 1 Radiant Flames, a Virulent Plague, a Self-Inflicted Wound, and a Secure the Wastes. Now, the ones that seem good to me, Self-Inflicted Wound, he's playing basically a green-white deck that splashes black. The black spells of creatures all have white in their mana. The Surge of Righteousness isn't terrible, but maybe not quite well on blue. But the one that stands up is Ugin.
Yes. Ugin is quite the boss against Abzan aggro. The problem with Ugin though is it does cost 8 mana, and the way that Abzan aggro curves out when you can go turn 1 Warden, pump into a 3/3, into Anafenza, into Rhino, you could just be dead by the time you cast an Ugin. And if David just stutters a little bit, draws the wrong part of his removal suite, so he gets a Kolaghan's command which doesn't kill anything, he could just be dead.
Yeah.
I also quite like the Transgress the Mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good card in this
Because
matchup
obviously
as
that's
well.
3 and above, so it can
Yes.
take Anafenza upwards, which is obviously
Exactly.
really powerful. Can't take Den Protector, because Den Protector is technically, although cast for 3, does only cost 1 and a green.
Yes. But it's still, I think the extra information and the ability to kind of remove the cards is really important, because you can't Den Protector it back. And actually, the secret best card in the matchup, I believe, is actually Abzan Charm.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to take away your opponent's Abzan Charms while keeping your own is probably quite important. And then on Victor's side, his sideboard is a bit more traditional. None of the top end that you normally that you see in David's deck. He's got 2 Duress, 2 Self-Inflicted Wounds, 3 Silk Wraps, 1 Sorin, 2 Tassigers, 2 Transgress the Mind, 2 Ultimate Price, and 1 Wingmate Rock. So, from his sideboard, I'm not sure what he wants from this sideboard, other than the Duresses.
Tassiger's probably not bad. It's another big threat. It's quite cheap.
See, the problem with Tassiger I see in this matchup is that it's just another big dude,
Mm-hmm.
and you've already got other big dudes that you have that you can cast almost on the same part of the curve, and it kind of just clutters your top end. You just want a curve, so adding another creature is not ideal. I like Duress because I think that he should be anticipating his opponent's going to board in spells to
Yeah,
deal
his
with.
opponent's deck's bigger than him.
Yes, so
The interesting one will be whether whether Victor thinks that Wingmate Rock is good in the matchup or not. Obviously, we know in the commentary that Wingmate Rock is not at its best in this matchup because there are lurking at the bottom of the spells section of David's deck 2 copies of Languish, and obviously Languish is very powerful against Wingmate Rock.
Yes.
It is a 3/4, as is the bird that comes with it. If there's a Gideon in play and he can minus it, obviously then it's 4/5. But if he's not able to put those pieces together, Wingmate Rock's going to do the duty for that one.
yeah, Languish is one of those cards that isn't seeing much that much play. Even though at the moment the metagame seems to revolve around the whole Wingmate Rock making tokens kind of thing. So it's nice to see that it's actually in the main deck of David's deck. And it'll be interesting to see whether Victor actually brought in his 4th Wingmate Rock, I believe? Or is it that
It's
the
a
first
third
one?
Wingmate Rock.
Third one,
There's
okay.
2 in the main. So we're seeing Victor take a quick mulligan. We can already see what looks like a Transgress the Mind, Abzan Charm, Warden of the First Tree, Murderous Cut, pair of lands, neither of them unfortunately producing green mana. We see Anafenza, the top card of the library. So we're going to see probably the
He's gonna
fetch land to
flood this
lead off.
strand,
Yeah, probably going to get a Sunken Hollow.
Yeah.
So he has black mana for Transgress the Mind.
I think it might be a Canopy Fister. I think the deck is much more green hungry than black
Okay.
hungry.
So we can see Transgress the Mind in.
From the other
That's
side
on the
of
other way. And well, there's only really
1, 2 choices.
3 choices. Probably don't take the Murderous Cut. It's going to be the Anafenza or it's going to be the Abzan Charm. I think
Yeah.
in this hand you might well take the threat in the Anafenza.
Yeah.
You can probably deal with the Warden.
Yes.
But
I think the Warden is not a threat right now,
but he's going to go with the Abzan Charm.
yeah.
So he obviously knows more than we do.
Yeah. Well, we did say that Abzan Charm is the secret MVP in this matchup, and he's probably seeing the Anafenza. He's probably got a removal spell for Anafenza, and also seeing Anafenza as, I'm not going to let you finish the game with the Anafenza quickly enough anyway, so I'd rather you didn't draw more cards.
Yeah, and and Anafenza on the draw, slightly less powerful than Anafenza on the play because your opponent can already have the 3 mana ready for it, rather than having to be that turn behind Anafenza all the time. When you go play this Anafenza, then they do it, and then you go Rhino, and then they have to answer that, and then you do something else, they have to answer that. You can just put them quite far behind. The other interesting thing with Gideon, with the card, is obviously Abzan Charm normally great against the 4-drops.
Yes.
Not necessarily against Gideon. If you always leave a 3 mana, they're just going to keep pumping out 2/2s. And then your Abzan Charm never really does anything.
Yeah, that's where the format really misses something like Hero's Downfall, because it used to be that you leave 3 mana open, you can have Downfall or Charm, but now you leave 3 mana open, it's just a Charm. So if they're playing a Planeswalker, you've kind of just time walked yourself.
So we see a hand of 4 lands from David. The Utter End, biting the dust from the Transgress the Mind. Victor's going to quickly note down those cards, but as I say, there are 4 lands in that hand, not going anywhere very quickly.
That makes that both the Keep and the Transgress the Mind quite odd, because I think if he, maybe he expected to use the Utter End on the Anafenza.
But the Transgress was already in Victor's hand, which is very interesting.
Yeah, so he knew about the Transgress. I think maybe he just overlooked the fact that he would be getting Transgress there, because Anafenza is obviously going to be a problem now if he can't draw a removal spell.
And we see there's a forest.
So
There was a Wooded Foothills, but unfortunately in with Anafenza.
yeah.
We've got to see if David was able to draw a spell. He's going to crack his fetch land. Can only fetch red or green. It can fetch a mountain. It can also fetch a dual land. So I imagine he's probably going to end up fetching up possibly his Canopy Vista. Gives him the white mana able to cast Abzan Charm, but he's going for the mountain.
Yeah. I think the way that because of battle lands, your land sequencing matters a lot more, and you really want to get 2 basics on the table as soon as possible. It makes all your other lands so much more better. Like you say, it's like playing Legacy. And why would you not play Legacy in Standard?
Yeah, it's true. Play Legacy mana bases in Standard. Well, almost Legacy mana bases in Standard.
You have to jump through a few hoops.
Jump for a few hoops, and I think these battle lands have probably been more powerful than people knew they'd be good, but they've been utterly incredible.
For a Standard format, definitely, especially with fetch lands. It'd be interesting to see when Khans rotates whether they're still as good. Because without the fetch lands, you probably have to start playing more copies. So at that point, they depreciate in value because more of them come into play tapped.
But as you see, if you look at, say, the green-white Megamorph deck, it's playing 4 battle lands.
Yeah.
9 basics and 12 fetch lands. That's your mana base.
Yeah. In a 2-color deck, it's much easier, and definitely the upside is so much higher than the downside. But in 3-color decks like these, you do have to work.
I mean, we look at the deck here. There's 1 Sunken Hollow, 1 Smouldering Marsh, and 2 Canopy Vistas. That's 4 battle lands alongside 4 basics.
Yeah, 2 forests and 2 plains.
Yeah. 4 Shambling Vents obviously is the concession to playing Abzan colours, and you can make the most of them. But
and also, Shambling Vents is just very, very good. The shape of being a 2/3 is actually very awkward for a lot of decks, because we don't have Lightning Strike anymore.
No, and that's a very big part of it. And we see Colligan's Command. We see Dragon Lord Jamoka as well. We see Colligan's Command being taken by Transgress the Mind. Obviously, Victor's has some plans there for the. He has the Murderous Cut as well. And we're going to see Warden. We're going to see just the Murderous Cut left in hand, which David knows about. Now, this would be a nice draw for, say, a Siege Rhino, but we see another land off the top there, unfortunately, for David.
I think even the Siege Rhino here would be a little bit awkward, because Victor has Murderous Cut in hand, and David's only on 15. So
it's going to be a lot of damage.
It's a lot of damage. So he could have just Murderous Cut the Rhino, pumped the Warden up to a 4/4, and now he's got 2 4/4s on the table.
He's still live. If Languish rolls off the top, it could be really good.
Oh, yes.
With Murderous Cut being a card in hand, we see another land for Victor. So, especially with Victor not having any man lands in play, as you refer to Shambling Vent, one that can become a creature. We see the pump up to 4, so we're going to see 8 points of damage done to David.
Yeah, this is a very quick clock. So
drop him all the way down to 7. Now, Languish would be so incredible here. We see Siege Rhino.
Yep, but I think Siege Rhino here is probably not quite enough. Does David know that Victor has a murderous card in hand, because
Yeah, he did from the earlier Transgress the Mind.
I think with that information, he has to play the Rhino here, because if he doesn't play the Rhino, he's just dead to the cut. So this player puts him on 1, and Victor is still very much in the driving seat, but it does give David
His Dragon Lord looks much better in that position.
yes, because he gets rid of the cuts if Victor chooses to use it.
Hmm. And of course, he now has 6 mana that doesn't cause any pain.
Yeah.
To get there.
Although I think there is a good attack here for Victor. So if he attacks with Anafenza and the Warden, oh no, he's on 10. So he could attack with just Anafenza and Warden, make the Warden to a 5/5, keeping the cut for the Dromoka that he knows is in his opponent's hand.
But I mean, David has a really nice. He can block the Anafenza.
Sure. But
Obviously, the Warden becomes a 5/5.
Yes, but
But
he has to respect Abzan Charm as well.
Yeah.
So
He's giving David, if he goes for that sort of thing, he's giving David a lot of time.
but but if he doesn't have an answer for the Dromoka, the Dromoka will take over the game quite quickly.
Well, we've got a draw step, got a couple of draw steps still to find, see if we find anything. Obviously, with 4 Abzan Charm, he should have a good number of ways
Yes.
to deal with it.
So
And
he's
there are
just drawn the perfect card pretty much.
Self-inflicted wound.
So sack that. I'm going to attack you for 8 or 9, and that's 8. That's it.
There we go.
It's a perfect draw off the top.
Yeah.
As we were trying to work out what he was going to draw.
What we could have had, it was easy. Nice self-inflicted wound.
Yeah.
That concludes the end of that round. Now, one of the nice things that we're trying here today, we've tried to get a second game on, trying to get a second feature match. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring it back to the booth. We're going to send Shay off to try and work out how to change these cameras over. And very soon we shall hopefully be going back to another match, which is Ataka Red, and it is actually Ataka Red with Lightning Berserker, Abbot of Carol Keep, Zergobel Striking Master Sphere versus Jeskai Black. And I mean, going back to that match there, it just felt that normally what we've seen with the big Abzan decks is when they get to that up higher mana, they can always rely on someone like Elspeth. When that was in the format, make 3/1 ones, and on that board, Elspeth is incredible. Kill both your guys. I have Elspeth. You are doing, and you have nothing.
Yes.
Whereas now, without that sort of top end, Dragon Lord Dromoka and Dragon Lord Ataka are not Elspeth at all.
Not Elspeth at all.
And one of the very interesting things, especially watching that game, is when the big Abzan deck falls behind, it has no real way of catching up again outside of a Crux or a Languish.
Yes.
And
Crux and Languish are a little bit hit and miss.
Of course. And as we saw, once it goes to 5, you need to then actually have, or Planner Outburst, obviously.
Sure.
Obviously, it's the other one, but to me, it feels like the Abzan control / mid-range decks have a disadvantage to the Abzan aggro decks, in that they're just slightly less efficient, they take a lot longer to get going, and their top end that they're building to isn't that much more powerful than the Abzan aggro deck.
Yeah, certainly. So in the last couple of weeks since the Pro Tour, the decks that you see playing Abzan colours tend to be the aggro versions. For that exact reason, like, the mid-range decks really do miss having an Elspeth type card at the top end. Ugin is probably your best impression of an Elspeth, but he costs 2 more mana, and it's probably 2 or 3 additional turns because you're not going to hit your land drops completely on time every time. So that extra time allows all the Jeskai decks, the Abzan aggro decks, the red decks just to run you over, and by the time you play Ugin, Ugin doesn't actually stabilize as well as an Elspeth even when he hits.
Yeah.
Because there's Hangerback Walkers, there's Morphs, there's Shambling Vents, there's all these cards that Ugin does not deal with. And Elspeth was very good because if you can't kill the board, you can make 3 blockers and you can jump for a little while. And then you untap and then you kill the board. And then you make more tokens.
And that was one of the when you now look back and you realise just how much those Abzan decks are missing Elspeth from their top end. I mean, you had the Abzan Megamorph deck and had Elspeth. They able to recur Elspeth, which is hugely powerful. You had Abzan Control, again, 2 or 3 copies of Elspeth able to go from that route. But now there's none of that. Gideon, Obnixilis, they're not in the same ballpark of what... They're both hugely powerful cards, and Gideon is probably on a power level of Elspeth.
Yes.
Just doesn't do the same thing that the deck's wanting it to do.
No. It's Gideon's a functionally... So on the surface of it, it's similar to Elspeth. It makes a token, it sits there and makes your opponent have to answer it. But he functions in a bit more of an aggressive sphere. He kind of wants you to attack. He doesn't really like sitting there. He wants to become a 5/5 and attack you after making a 2. Elspeth doesn't care. Elspeth is happy to minus and then plus and then ultimate.
And Elspeth had so many versatile modes. Minus, obviously, the -3, destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater, or make 3 1/1s. And as we saw in that game, 4 1/1s, 3 1/1s would be really hard to get over at that point. And instead of having to cast the Siege Rhino's Murderous Cut, you just go, I'll play my Elspeth.
Yes.
I'll blow up both your guys and proceed accordingly from there.
Even plussing at that point would have been fine.
So, we're just going to quickly put it onto the event screen. We will be back momentarily with the second match that we have available to us. We just need to swap the cameras over. We'll be back in 2 minutes. So, we've now been able to change the cameras over.
Yep.
As you saw a quick glimpse there, which, as I say, we're trying a new system out here today, which is quite good for us. We're just working out a few things with the system. The cables have obviously got to go across to the right place, but it's a fantastic thing to have access to, and we can bring you now live coverage of the second game that we have on feature, which is Dominic Harvey on Jeskai Black versus, and I'll have to try and pronounce the name, Vicent Silvestre on Abzan, on Ataka Red. And it's the actual Ataka Red, not the Lample version. So we're going to go straight back down there, and we'll pick it up from where we left off. So, quite the board.
That is a board state.
See, this is post-board.
I assume so, because we're seeing multiple hangerback walkers.
And there's exactly 4 hangerback walkers in his sideboard, and they are big hangerback walkers at the moment. But Mantis Rider, Doctor tokens, Vincent is at 10. That Mantis Rider doesn't take long to close this game.
No, especially with 2 Thopter buddies.
So we're going to see a
Monstrous
bit here. Now, do we see a attack here? I suppose we've got the Soulfire Grandmaster, and we have a Dispel in hand as well. So obviously the Dispel is covering, but he has no blue mana open.
No.
So
what did he cast last time? It must be the Mantis Rider.
So we saw Mantis Rider enter the battlefield. Obviously, the way that the Jeskai Black deck mana is set up, he's not quite able to hold up the blue mana as well, having to use all his blue mana to cast the Mantis Rider.
Yes, because his blue mana is also his white mana. So.
Yeah, and he had to use blue-white from the Prairie Stream and the Monastery. So I think we just see everything in here from.
Yeah, they're both on a very low life total, so this attack forces Dominic to make some decisions here. Having no access to his blue mana means he can't really protect himself from a Become Immense or Ataka's command.
And we know that one of the cards in Vincent's hand is Become Immense.
Yes.
We had a quick glimpse of green.
Yes.
And it's a soul green card, so we know what that normally means.
Yes.
And it is the full. It's only 3 Become Immense. They're not running as many. They're not all in on as the green red deck.
It's probably a concession to the fact you play a bit fewer low cost spells and a couple less fetch lands. So it'd be interesting to see whether Dominic actually survives this turn, because there's, I believe, 8 attackers to just 6 blockers. So if he misblocks here ever so slightly, then the Become Immense is lethal. Although, on the other hand, if Vincent doesn't win this turn, then the swing back is going to kill him as well.
And he can obviously use this Become Immense to try and take care of things like Tasiga.
Yes.
So we're going to see 2 Goblin tokens making it through combat, and obviously they won't be training. Some of the things will unfortunately be getting killed. The Soulfire Grandmaster,
Yeah.
and we see the Mantis Rider now.
It
Yeah,
looks to me like
no.
everything's going to die that are blocking walkers. So he's selected to choose the least relevant attackers to block those. He does also have an activation of Pierre open. Was that 3? I think
That's 3
isn't it?
mana. It's 2 in a red. Sacrifice an artifact. Deal 2 points of damage.
Okay.
And the Hangback Walkers present a significant clock. Obviously, the damage from the Goblins is going to be negated by the Sulphur Grandmaster, but it's another card off the table, and with a Crackling Doom in Dominic's hand, he wants to put himself in a position where he probably wanted to keep around that Sulphur Grandmaster.
There's actually an interesting line of play here that Vicent can do. He could potentially become immense his opponent's creature, and then killing his own Hangerback Walkers, giving him blockers.
Oh wow, yeah, that would be...
So that would allow him to live another turn and give him some flyers for the turn after.
And that's a lot of flyers.
Yes.
It leaves, obviously, Dominic's Thopter alive, but that's fine.
Yeah. I
Probably
think you can live with that if you have 5 of your own.
So we're going to see Become Immense. He's going to target his Swift Spear, so he's not going for that play that you mentioned. That's not a play I saw. A play that certainly not many people would see unless you maybe had that game before seen there. So we're going to see the Swift Spear trade with the Tasiga. And we're going to see all these teams die.
So
we're going to see most of the board die.
Yep, he's going to be left with Pierre and a Mantis Rider. And those Crackling Dooms in hand is very awkward.
Yes,
'cause
with
those
2
Hangerback
5 5s. And this is how long this game must have been going on for. They are 5-5 Hangerbacks, and both of them are 5-5 Hangerback Walkers. That is a lot of... that is a lot of turns.
They've decluttered for us a little bit.
It's much easier to see now.
Yeah.
So, Dominic, we can see, has another copy of Mystic Monastery in hand. He's playing 1 Pierre and Kieran Nalar in the main. He's got the usual... he's got 4 Mantis Rider, 4 Jace, 2 Soulfires, 1 Dragon Master Outcasts, only 2 Ojutais Command, 2 Tasiga, and then 1 Murderous Cut, 2 Utter Ends. So he's got 2 Utter Ends, 3 Collins Commands, 4 Crackling Doom, 3 Wild Slash, a Fiery Impulse, a Negate, a Dispel, and 2 Dig Through Time. Now, Negate, as I noticed when I've been playing online, starting to see a lot more play main board, main deck in the Jeskai Black deck. I've got a few times by it, I'm not going to lie. It's not pleasant when you're playing Green White Megamorph pre-board and they're not meant to have that card.
No, that's a move, I think, to combat the Planeswalkers that are seeing more and more play now, as people realise that people are playing Ojutai's Command, so my creatures aren't resolving, but my Planeswalkers aren't, so I'll play my Planeswalkers. This one, I think he just made another Mantis Rider, and he's trying to work out whether he can survive another turn.
So, in for 6 with the Mantis Riders. We're going to see it. Now, what can Vicent do this turn? His opponent's at 10. He is now at 4, and it is a lethal attack next turn from the Mantis Riders.
Yes.
So, we're going to have are we going to spin the wheel? Now we got Dragon Fodder.
So his opponent's on 10. He's got 2 very large Hangerback Walkers, which will probably just run over a Mantis and a Pier.
We see everything else in. We've triggered the Swift Spear.
Yeah.
Vicent can't wait to turn his creature sideways, but we know there's still a Crackling Doom in hand as well, and if one of those Mantis Riders is able to survive this combat step, which it looks like it might be able to.
Yeah, that looks like the plan from Dominic. I think in this situation, Vicent probably could have kept the last card in hand, just to make Dominic think a bit harder about blocking, because that attack meant, with no cards in hand, meant that Dominic can quite freely just block with both Mantis Riders on non-lethal creatures.
Yeah, and obviously keeping the stuff alive. Maybe it would have been interesting to have just sent in with the Hangerback Walkers. Obviously, you're not really sure what happens at that point, and anything could go wrong. But I agree, holding that card in hand might have made the blocks a little bit more difficult, as the Become Immense would have been.
Yeah,
would have been lethal at that
there's
point.
Become Immense, there's a Tarka command, putting yourself on 2 to a Wild Slash even, so, or Battle Rage even. So
yeah, and that would have been good. Obviously, you've got the 2 5/5 Hangerback Walkers. Your opponent is effectively tapped out of his spells that can deal with and interact with those Hangerback Walkers. Obviously, Luna's blue mana. So that brings us to the end of round 4.
Yep.
We see Dominic
on Jeskai Black beating Green Red. No, not Green Red. Ataka Red.
Ataka Red. We're not on landfall, and obviously we saw Victor Vidal marching on to 4 and 0. Obviously, their opponents dropping down to
3 and 1.
3 and 1. Still alive for top 8. 7 rounds is a long time.
Yeah.
But we are on the downhill stretch now.
Yes.
We're down into round 5, 6, and 7.
And you'd imagine that by round 7 we'd have a vague idea of who's in the top 8.
Yeah. This should be, we believe, by the end of this round, the top 3 top 3 tables were all on 3 and 0, or there should be someone from 3 and 0 on there. And obviously we'll then be moving on to the next table where there should be a matchup of the Exos and then one player paired down as well. We had a few people with 1 loss. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with coverage of round 5. I'm going to step out the booth. Shay's going to step in, join Tom for another couple of rounds, and then you'll have myself and Shay for the top 8 and probably for round 7 as well. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you again very shortly.